بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه كما يحب ربنا ويرضى. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله الناصح الأمين. اللهم صل على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين. ثم أما بعد. Alhamdulillah, we continue going over the tremendous book by the Allama Shaykh Salih Al-Fawzan Hafidhahullah Ta'ala, the book that is entitled Aqeedatut Tawheed. We are on the chapter or the section that deals with the aqwal wal af'al tunafi at-tawheed aw tunqisu, those statements and those actions that will negate the tawheed or that will reduce it. And inside of this section we have reached the third topic, or the third subchapter, which deals with التقديم القرابين والنذور للمزارات والهداية للمزارات والقبور وتعظيمها. It deals with putting forward and offering slaughterings, meaning slaughtering animals, qurban, slaughtering animals, or putting forth oaths to those places that are visited. Now, mazar is a mawdi', is ziyarah, is something or a place that is visited or visited. And what is intended here, ما يزار من مقابر الأولياء, is that which is visited, that which is visited, ما يزار من مقابر الأولياء, that which is visited from the graves of the quote-unquote awliya. Now, this is what is intended, that people have taken these places, these graves, as places that are visited, and they encourage people with visiting them and the like. وَالْقُبُورِ, and the graves, and glorifying them, and overpraise or the like of that, glorifying and magnifying these particular places. Shaykh Fawzan Hafidhahullah Ta'ala, he says, وَقَدْ سَدَّ النَّبِي صلى الله عليه وسلم كل طرق المفضية إلى الشرك. He said that the Prophet ﷺ, he closed every road, or he closed all of the roads that lead to shirk. He closed all of the roads that lead to shirk. وَحَذَّرَ مِنْهَا غَايَةَ التَّحْذِيرِ, and he warned from them to the full extent of warning. He warned from them to the full epitome of what it is to warn. وَمِنْ ذَلِكَ, and from those roads that lead to shirk, مَسْأَلَةَ الْقُبُورِ, is the issue of the graves. The issue of the graves. نعم. فَقَدْ وَضَعَ الضَّوَابِطَ الْوَاقِعَةِ مِنْ عِبَادَتِهَا. So the Prophet ﷺ, he put down rules and regulations and guidelines that will safeguard, and that will al-waqiyah, that will safeguard and protect from the worshipping of these graves. وَالْغُلُو فِي أَصْحَابِهَا, and guidelines that will safeguard and protect from having exaggeration as relates to those who are dead inside of the graves. Because the honoring of the graves and bringing animals to be killed at the graves and taking oaths to the graves and the like, and taking them as places of worship, or places that are oft visited and thus doing acts of worship therein or in close proximity to, is because of a ghulu, is because of some type of exaggeration that the people have as relates to the person who was buried and dead in that particular place. Na'am. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, or the Allama, he goes on and he says, وَأَنَّهُ قَدْ حَذَّرَ صلى الله عليه وسلم من الغلو في الأولياء والصالحين. He said the Prophet ﷺ, he warned from having exaggeration as relates to the righteous people and as relates to the awliya. لأن ذلك يؤدي إلى عبادتهم, because that leads to worshipping of them. Na'am. Having ghulu, having an exaggerated opinion about righteous people, na'am, and those avid servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, eventually that leads to people worshipping them and offering and devoting unto them certain acts of worship. وَعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. So the Prophet ﷺ, he shut down the road of all of this. Na'am. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, so the Prophet ﷺ, he said, إِيَّاكُمْ وَالْغُلُو. Beware of ghulu, beware of exaggeration, beware of being extreme. فَإِنَّمَا أَهْلَكَ مَنْ كَانَ قَبْلَكُمْ الْغُلُو. Because that was destroyed, the people that came before you was being extreme, was having exaggeration. Na'am. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, and the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he said, لا تطروني كما أطرت النصارى ابن مريم. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he said, don't over exaggerate as relates to me as the Christians have over exaggerated as relates to Ibn Maryam, meaning as relates to Isa ibn Maryam. Don't over exaggerate with me like the Christians have over exaggerated as relates to Jesus. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, reminding, إِنَّمَا أَنَا عَبْدٌ. He said, verily I am a slave. I am a slave of Allah Azza wa Jal. فَقُولُوا عَبْدُ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولُهُ. So say that I am the slave of Allah and His messenger. So say that I am the slave of Allah and His messenger. So the Prophet ﷺ, he's reminding us. And as we know, the Prophet ﷺ, he is the best of mankind. The Prophet ﷺ, he is the best of the prophets and the messengers. And with that being the case, he is reminding us not to over-exaggerate as relates to him. And he's the best human being ever. Don't over-exaggerate as relates to him. Na'am. Don't over-exaggerate as relates to him like the Christians have over-exaggerated with Ibn Maryam. And we know the ghulu that the Christians have with Isa alayhi salatu wassalam. We know the exaggeration and extremism that the Christians they have with Jesus, as they have taken Jesus as an object of worship. They say that Jesus is the Son of Allah, wa'iyadhu billah, and they say that Jesus is Allah, wa'iyadhu billah. They have risen him well beyond his scope and his status and his position, because Isa ibn Maryam, he is the slave of Allah Azza wa Jal. Isa ibn Maryam, he is an abd from the ibad of Allah Azza wa Jal. He is a slave from the slaves of Allah Azza wa Jal. He is not the son of Allah Azza wa Jal, nor is he Allah Azza wa Jal, but rather he is a human being, and he is a slave and a messenger of Allah Azza wa Jal. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he doesn't take any children. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he doesn't have any parents. There is nothing that is similar unto Allah Azza wa Jal. على كل حال, الشيخ فوزان حفظه الله تعالى, he goes on and he says, وحذر صلى الله عليه وسلم من البناء على القبور. And the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he warned from building upon the graves. He warned from building structures upon the graves. كما روى أبو حياج الأسدي قال لي علي ابن أبي طالب رضي الله تعالى عنه ألا أبعثك على ما بعثني عليه رسول الله أو ما بعثني عليه الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم. Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said to him, should I not send you out upon the same mission that the Prophet ﷺ, he sent me out on, or the same mission that the messenger he sent me upon? ألا تدع تمثالا إلا طمسته ولا قبرا مشرفا إلا سويته. He said, do not leave any statue. Do not leave any statue except that you destroy it. You demolish it. You erase it. And do not leave any grave that has been raised except that you level it. Except that you level it. Do not leave any raised grave except that you level it. Naam. So raised grave means raised beyond the level of the ground. Naam. Because it has some type of tombstone upon it, or some type of edifice that hasn't built over it, or some type of building that has been erected over it, and so on and so forth. To level all of these things and demolish these things down. The Prophet ﷺ, he ordered with the demolishing of the statues and the erasing of the statues and the pictures, na'am, and the demolishing of the raised graves and so on and so forth. All of this is to close the door on shirk, to close all of the roads to shirk. Na'am. وَنَهَى عَنْ تَجْصِيصِهَا. And the Prophet ﷺ, he prohibited the plastering of the graves, وَالْبِنَاءَ عَلَيْهَا, to plaster the graves and to adorn them with some type of stucco and the like. وعن جابر رضي الله تعالى عنه قال نهى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن تجصيص القبر. But the Prophet ﷺ, he prohibited from plastering and putting stucco upon the graves. وأن يقعد عليه, and from sitting upon the graves. وأن يبنى عليه بناء, and from building a structure upon the graves. So all of these things the Prophet ﷺ, he prohibited. He prohibited the people from sitting upon the graves. He prohibited the people from putting stucco and plaster upon the graves, yani adorning the graves with some type of plaster or stucco, and from building any type of structure upon the graves. وحذر صلى الله عليه وسلم من الصلاة عند القبور. And the Prophet ﷺ, he warned us and he prohibited, or he warned us from praying in proximity to graves. عن عائشة رضي الله تعالى عنها قالت, on the authority of Aisha رضي الله تعالى عنها, she said, لما نزل برسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم طفق يطرح خميصة له على وجهه فإذا اغتم بها كشفها فقال وهو كذلك لعنة الله على اليهود والنصارى اتخذوا قبور أنبيائهم مساجد يحذر ما صنعوا ولولا ذلك أبرز قبره صلى الله عليه وسلم غير أنه خشي أن يتخذ مسجدا. On the authority of our mother Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha, she said that when the Prophet ﷺ was in his last moments of life, when the sickness it increased, when the sickness increased, when the Prophet ﷺ, he was dying upon his deathbed, he put his shirt over his face. He put his shirt over his face, and then when the pains and that were subsided, he will remove it from his face, and he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, may the curse of Allah be upon the Jews and the Christians, because they have taken the graves of their Anbiya as Masajid. May the curse of Allah be upon the Christians, because they have taken the graves of their prophets as Masajid. Now, our mother, she said that the Prophet ﷺ, he warned us from doing the likes of that. She said, and if this was not the case, then we would have made the grave of the Prophet ﷺ distinct. You have done something to make it distinct, so it was easily identified. She said, but we didn't do that because the Prophet ﷺ, he was scared that it will be taken as a masjid. It will be taken as a place of worship, as a masjid. Na'am. وقال صلى الله عليه وسلم, and the Prophet ﷺ, he said, ألا وإن من كان قبلكم كانوا يتخذون قبور أنبيائهم مساجد. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, what means, and then verily those who had came before you, they had taken the graves of their prophets as masajid. ألا فلا تتخذوا القبر المساجد or القبور المساجد. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, do not take the graves as a masjid. نعم فلا تتخذوا القبور مساجد. So don't take the graves as masajid. فإني أنهاكم عن ذلك. He said, because I prohibit you from this. I prohibit you from taking the graves as masjids. And that means by putting a grave inside of the masjid, or building a masjid over the grave. The Prophet ﷺ has prohibited that the graves be taken as masajid. وقال العلامة الشيخ فوزان رحمه الله تعالى واتخاذها مساجد معناه, and the meaning of taking them as a masajid الصلاة عندها. Because an individual, it may be restricted in his mind that taking the graves as a masjid, it means that just a structure is built or a grave is put inside of a structure. Now, that a structure was built or that a grave was put inside of a structure. This enters into the meaning of taking the graves as masajid, but also you will find that the meaning is much broader than that. As Allama Shaykh Salih al-Fawzan he points out, he said, وَاتِّخَاذُهَا مَسَاجِدْ مَعْنَاهُ الصلاة عندها وإن لم يبنى مسجد عليها. He said what it means is to pray to it or on top of it or in close proximity unto it, even if there is no physical masjid that has been built on top of it. That it means to, what it means to take a grave as a masjid, it means to pray on top of a grave or to a grave, in the direction of a grave, or close proximity to it, even if you didn't build nothing on it, even if there's no physical structure built on top of that grave. Praying at that grave, making salah at that grave, is taking that grave as a masjid. فَكُلُّ مَوْضِعٍ قصد الصلاة فيه فقد اتخذ مسجدا. And this is a very important point that I want everyone to understand, because they may come in and they say, well, what's the proof that if you pray in at a grave site, if you pray in the graveyard, then you have taken these graves as a masjid, you have taken the qubur as a masjid? What's the proof of this? That if you pray at a person's grave, na'am, a salah at a person's grave, then you have taken his grave as a masjid. What's the proof of that? The proof is that what? Every place that you pray therein, and you intend a salah, you intend a prayer, and you have prayed therein, then technically that's a masjid. That's a masjid. It's a place of sujood. Na'am. Kama qala Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said what? He said, جُعِلَتْ لِي الْأَرْضُ مَسْجِدًا وَالطُّهُورًا. He said that the earth has been made for me as a masjid and a place of purity. Na'am. That the earth has been made for me as a masjid and a place of purity. So for the Muslims, we can pray anywhere upon the earth, whether it's the desert, the rainforest, the city, the country, whatever. Na'am, except for what? Except for those places specified by the Prophet ﷺ that it is haram for us to pray therein. Like where? Like the graveyards. The graveyards. We're not allowed to pray inside the graveyards, because if we pray inside the graveyards, then we have taken it as a masjid. Now, Because if we pray anywhere else inside of the earth than that particular place that we're praying at that particular time for the duration of the prayer, then it has been taken as what? As a masjid. It's been taken as a place of sujood. Naam. جُعِلَتْ لِي الْأَرْضُ مَسْجِدًا وَطُهُورًا. That the earth has been made for me to be a masjid and pure. As this hadith that comes and has been collected by Imam Muslim in his Sahih. Afwan, this hadith has been collected by Imam al-Bukhari. Naam. Hadith that comes has been collected by Imam al-Bukhari. Naam. فَإِذَا بَنَى عَلَيْهَا. So if a structure is actually built upon the grave, naam, فَإِذَا بَنَى عَلَيْهَا مَسْجِد. If a masjid is built upon a grave, فَالْأَمْرُ أَشَدْ. Then the affair is more severe. Then the affair is worse. If they actually build a grave on it, then the affair is way worse. نعم. فَقَدْ خَالَفَ أَكْثَرُ النَّاسِ هَذِهِ النَّوَاهِي. Most of the people, they have gone against and contradicted these prohibitions. وَارْتَكَبُوا مَا حَذَّرَ مِنْهُ النَّبِي صلى الله عليه وسلم. And they have embarked upon that which the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم has prohibited. فَوَقَعُوا بِسَبَبِ ذَلِكَ فِي الشِّرْكِ الْأَكْبَرِ. And due to that, they have fallen into major shirk. فَبَنُوا عَلَى الْقُبُورِ مَسَاجِدِ. So they have built upon the graves masajid. وَأَضْرِحَةً. And they have built upon them أضرحة, which is like altars and forget the other word for it, but like an altar or like a shrine. They built shrines upon them. وَمُقَامَاتٍ. And all types of altars and shrines and the like. They have built it upon the graves. وَجَعَلُوهَا مَزَارَاتٍ. And they have made these places that are oft visited, places that they encourage people to visit. وَتَمَارُسْ عِنْدَهَا. And you find that they are very passionate when they go there. Very passionate. There's a lot of hustle and bustle. Very passionate. وَكُلُّ أَنْوَاعِ الشِّرْكِ الْأَكْبَرِ. And all types of shirk al-akbar. All types of shirk al-akbar you find that they are doing at these graves. مِنَ الذَّبْحِ لَهَا. From slaughtering animals to the grave. وَالدُّعَاء أَصْحَابَهَا. And making dua, supplicating to the person who's dead inside of that grave. وَإِسْتِغَاثَ بِهِمْ. And seeking help in times of peril or in serious perilous situations with the people dead in those graves. وَصَرْفُ النُّذُورِ لَهُمْ. And offering up oaths to the ones who are dead inside of the grave. وَغَيْرِ ذَلِكَ. And other than that. وقال العلامة إمام ابن القيم رحمه الله تعالى ومن جمع بين سنة ومن جمع بين سنة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في القبور وما أمر به ونهى عنه وما كان عليه أصحابه رضي الله تعالى عنه وبين ما عليه أكثر الناس اليوم رأى أحدهما مضادا للآخر مناقضا له. He said that if we were to combine if an individual was to combine between the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as relates to graves, and that which he's commanded as relates to them, and that which he has prohibited as relates to them, and that which his companions they were upon as relates to the graves, and they were to combine or to compare between that and between what the majority of the people are upon today, then they will find that each of these are in complete contradiction to one another and totally opposing each other. بحيث لا يجتمعان أبدا. He said to the point where they can never come together, they can never coalesce, they can never coincide, they can never be brought together ever. There will never be any agreement to them ever. فَنَهَى الرَّسُولُ. Then he brings some examples. فَنَهَى الرَّسُولُ صلى الله عليه وسلم عن الصلاة إلى القبور. The Prophet ﷺ, he prohibited from praying to the graves. The Prophet ﷺ, he prohibited from praying to the graves. نعم. وَهَؤُلَاء يُصَلُّونَ عِنْدَهَا. But these individuals, they pray at the graves. The Prophet ﷺ, he prohibited from praying to the graves. These individuals pray at the grave. At the grave they pray. وَنَهَا عَنْ اتِّخَاذِهَا مَسَاجِدِ. And the Prophet ﷺ, he prohibited from taking the graves as masajid. وَهَؤُلَاء يَبْنُونَ عَلَيْهَا الْمَسَاجِدِ. But these individuals, they build masajid on top of the graves. These individuals build masajid on top of the graves. Naam. وَيُسَمُّونَهَا مَشَاهِد. And they call it mashahid. You see, they build a masjid on top of the grave, or they bring a grave and put it inside the masjid, and they call it mashahid. وَعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. مُضَاهَا. نعم. مُضَاهَا لِبُيُوتِ اللَّهِ. Rivaling in a rivalry with the houses of Allah. وَنَهَا عَنْ إِيقَاظِ السُّرُجِ عَلَيْهَا. فَهَؤُلَاء يقوفون الوقوف على إيقاظ القنادل عليها. The Prophet ﷺ, he prohibited from the burning of candles at the grave. The Prophet ﷺ, he prohibited from the burning of candles at the grave. Now, so all that candlelight visuals and all that type of stuff at graveyards or whatever, this is not from the way of Islam. This is not from the way of the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ, he prohibited from the burning of candles upon the graves. These individuals, they place themselves upon the graves and station themselves upon the graves and camp out at the graves and the like. And they don't just burn a candle, but they burn lamps at the graves. Not candles, but they bring a lamp to the graves. وَعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. وَنَهَا عَنْ أَن تُتَخِذَ عِيدًا. And the Prophet ﷺ has prohibited from taking the visiting to the graves as an annual task, that they're visited annually upon the same day and so on and so forth. That they're visited annually. The Prophet ﷺ, he prohibited from that. فَهَؤُلَاء يَتَّخِذُونَهَا أَعْيَادًا وَمَنَاسِكًا. نعم. وَمَنَاسِك. نعم. But these individuals, they have taken the graves as annual places that they visit. As annual places that they visit. وَيَجْتَمِعُونَ لَهَا كَاجْتِمَاعِهِمْ لِلْعِيدِ أَوْ أَكْثَرُ. And you will find that they come together and they gather upon these particular annual dates, these annual dates that they have to visit the graves. You will find them gathering at the graveyards, at these particular sites on these days, even more so than you will find them gathering on the Eid, or to the same extent that they gather on the Eid, or even more than that. Naam. وَأَمَرَ بِتَسْوِيَتِهَا. And the Prophet ﷺ, he commanded that the graves be leveled. كَمَا رَوَى مُسْلِمْ فِي الصَّحِيحِ. Like Muslim, he narrates inside of his collection of authentic hadith, عن أبي الحياج الأسدي قال لي علي ibn Abi Talib رضي الله تعالى عنه, that he said that Ali رضي الله تعالى عنه, he said to me, the hadith we just mentioned a little while ago, ألا أبعثك على ما بعثني عليه رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, ألا تدع صورة إلا طمستها ولا قبرا مشرفا إلا سويته أو مشرفا إلا سويته. He said, or it's actually another narration from the hadith that we mentioned earlier. The Prophet ﷺ, or Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said, should I not send you out on that which the Prophet ﷺ, he sent me out on? Should I not commission you with the same mission in which the Prophet ﷺ, he commissioned me with? To which he said, do not leave any painting, or do not leave any image. Do not leave any image, do not leave any graven image, except that you erase it. You erase it, you demolish it. nor any raised grave, except that you level it. Except that you level it. نعم. وفي صحيح أيضا عن ثمامة بن شفيون, collection of authentic hadith, meaning also in Muslim, on the authority of Thumama bin Shufyu. He said, كنا مع فضالة بن عبيد بأرض الروم برودس. نعم. فتوفي صاحب لنا فأمر فضالة بقبره فسوي, ثم قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يأمر بتسويتها. Thumama, he said that we were with Fudala bin Ubayd in Rome, and we were in the city of Rhodes, which is Rhodes, the city of Rhodes, Rhodes, the city of Rhodes in Rome. He said, and one of our companions died. He said, so Fadala, he commanded that his grave be leveled. After they buried him, that he commanded that the grave be leveled off. It be smoothed out and leveled off to the surrounding ground, same level as the surrounding earth. And then he said that I heard the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam commanding with the leveling of the graves, so that the graves are on the same level of ground as that which is around it. Now, Imam Ibn Qayyim goes on and he says, فَهَؤُلَاء. Now, and the reason why the ground is leveled around it, so that it's not easily identified where the grave is. There's no marker like that, so it's easily identified where the grave is. So this is why the graves are leveled, and it's important we understand this point. This is why they're leveled, so that there is no identifying marker to where this particular grave is, and thus people won't make any to do or anything special as relates to the occupant of that grave. You understand? This was from the wisdom of having it leveled off like that. فَهَؤُلَاء يُبَالِغُونَ فِي مُخَالَفَ هَذَيْنِ الْحَدِيثَيْنِ. But you find the people that they go against these two hadith. They go against these two hadith. يَرْفَعُونَهَا عَنِ الْأَرْضِ كَالْبَيْتِ. They raise it upon the earth until the grave is like a house. Now, they raise it upon the earth until it's like a house. But so as to make it distinct, so that you know, this is not a house, but rather it is a grave. What do? يَعْقِدُونَ عَلَيْهَا الْقَبَابِ. They put domes on it. They put domes on it to make it distinct, so that you know that this structure is actually a grave. So they go completely against the commands of the Prophet ﷺ. They go completely against the two hadith, completely against it, as opposed to leveling it out, bringing it down to ground level, so that it's not distinct from anything else around it. Now, and what this means is that we're not saying that the grave becomes like anything around it. You don't know where the grave is, so therefore you can just walk on it, trample on it, build a house on it. No, the graveyard is known that this is the graveyard, and that area is allocated for people to be buried therein. But inside of that area of allocation where the people are buried therein, right? Then there's no what would you say? There's no singling out or specification of this grave from that grave, and so on and so forth. Everyone is buried and then is leveled out, and then khalas, that's it. Naam, that's it. But there's no big to do. There's no exaggerating over it. So meaning, after a time period will go by, people will come to that graveyard and they will know, yes, people are buried in this particular place. But from the mannerisms of the grave itself, you won't know who's buried there. You won't know whether this person was a sheikh, he was a talib, he was a leader, he was commoner. You wouldn't know what. He was a doctor. He was whatever. You wouldn't know who was that in that place. All you would know was this is a grave and someone's dead there. That's it. But as far as who's there, what his status was, none of that, you don't know, because all the other graves are the same. There's no distinction. Now, they're all level, ground level, simple. That's it. Now, anyone would like an example of that, look at Baqi', the graveyard of the Sahaba in Al-Medina. Then you will find it's like this. Now, you'll find it's like this. Subhanallah, there was a brother who passed away there not long ago, and one of the brothers, he was telling me that they buried the brother there, and he was from those brothers who helped bury him in Medina. He said, but due to the setup of the graveyard and the like, he said that if he were to be asked on this day right now to take you back to exactly where the brother was buried at, he said he doesn't know. He couldn't find it. He couldn't bring you back to his exact grave plot. Now, couldn't bring you there. Why? Because all the graves are the same. They're all leveled out and so on and so forth. It's a big space. Now, he said I couldn't bring you to exactly where he was buried because I don't know. I don't remember. No, I don't remember. And that's how it should be. Why? Because all of this closes the door to shirk. Closes the door to shirk. Shaykh Fawzan, he says, إِلَا أَنْ قَالْ, he said, until Imam Ibn Qayyim, he said, فَانْظُرْ إِلَى هذا التباين العظيم بين ما شرعه الرسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وقصده من نهي عما تقدم ذكره في القبور. He says, so look at the great contradiction as between the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and what these people are doing. Look at the great contradiction between that which the Prophet ﷺ, between that which the Messenger of Allah he has legislated and that which he has intended as related to the prohibition of that which has come forward as relates to the graves. وَبَيْنَ مَا شَرَعَهُ هَؤُلَاء وَقَصَدُوهُ, and between that which these other individuals they have legislated and what they have intended, meaning what they have practiced, their practice, and what they have intended. These people who go against the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Imam Ibn Qayyim, he said, وَلَا رَيْبَ أَنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ مِنَ الْمَفَاسِدِ مَا يَعْجِزُ الْعَبْدِ عَنْ حَصْرِهِ. He said, and there's no doubt that inside of what these people are doing and their gross contradiction to the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said you have therein corruption and you have therein evil of which the slave is incapable of limiting and or restricting. نعم. ثم أخذ بذكر تلك المفاسد, and then Imam Ibn Qayyim, he mentioned some of these mafasid. نعم. إلا أن قال, until the point where he said, ومنها, and from these evils, أن الذي, from the evils that these people they do when they contradict the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, from these evils, أن الذي شرعه النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عند زيارة القبور إنما هو تذكير الآخرة وهو التذكير الآخرة. نعم، التذكير الآخرة والإحسان إلى المزور بالدعاء له والترحم عليه واستغفار والسؤال العافية له، فيكون الزائر محسنا إلى نفسه وإلى الميت. فقبل هؤلاء المشركون الأمر والعكسوه الدين وجعلوا المقصود بالزيارة الشرك بالميت والدعاء به والسؤال الحوائجهم واستنزال البركات منه ونصره لهم على الأعداء ونحو ذلك، فصاروا مسيئين إلى أنفسهم وإلى الميت، ولو لم يكن إلا بحرمانه بركة ما شرعه تعالى من دعاء له وترحم عليه واستغفار له. Imam Ibn Qayyim, he said that if you look and from the evils of what these people they do, he said is that the Prophet ﷺ, he legislated as related to when we visit the graves, that we remember the hereafter. That when we visit the graves, we should remember death, we should remember the hereafter. Naam. And that we should act in a good way to the person that we're visiting. That we interact in a good way and we treat good the dead person and or people that we are visiting. Naam. How? By making dua for them. By making dua for them. And by asking Allah to have mercy upon them. And by asking Allah to forgive them. Naam. And for asking Allah to grant them safety. You see? We make dua for them. So this is good for them. And then we what? We remember the hereafter. We remember death. We remember that soon we're going to be in their place. So then this is good for us. So Imam Ibn Qayyim, he said, فَيَكُونُ الزَّائِرُ مُحْسِنًا إِلَى نَفْسِهِ وَإِلَى الْمَيِّتِ. So therefore the one who is visiting, the visitor, he's thus good unto himself and he's good to the person who is dead. He's good to himself and to the person who is dead. So you find that they are good unto themselves by remembering the hereafter, remembering death, and they're good to the person who's dead by asking Allah to forgive them, by making dua for them, by asking Allah to have mercy upon them, and so on and so forth. But he said, but these polytheists, these people who make shirk, they have totally flipped the affair. They have changed the deen around. They have made their intention with their visiting is to make shirk with the person who's dead. They make shirk with the person who's dead by making dua to them and by making dua by way of them. They make dua to them and they make dua by way of them in their name and so on and so forth. And they ask the one who is dead for their needs, to the fulfillment of their needs. Wastinzal. And they try to extract what? Blessings from the dead person. And you find that people like this, rubbing the grave and rubbing themselves and all kinds of, subhanAllah, all kind of crazy stuff. Now, and they ask the one who was dead in the grave for victory over their enemies and the likes of this. So you find that these individuals are in actuality treating themselves in the most awful manner by making shirk, and they're acting in the most awful manner to the dead. Imam Ibn Qayyim, he said, they're acting in an awful manner to the dead, even if we were just to say, due to them preventing that dead person from the blessings that Allah has legislated in making dua for them, asking Allah to have mercy upon them, and asking Allah to forgive them. Because the people who they want to make shirk for, they don't ask Allah to forgive them, they don't ask Allah to have mercy upon them, they don't make dua for them. So they have been prohibited. They prohibited that dead person from this benefit. They prohibited that dead person from the likes of these, for likes of this blessing. So even if we were to say that that's the only way in which that they're harming that dead person, then even that within itself would be sufficient to show their ill behavior towards that person who was dead inside the grave. وَعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ وَعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. The Shaykh Fawzan rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, وَبِهَذَا يَتَّضِحْ أَنَّ تَقْدِيمَ النُّذُورِ وَالْقَرَابِينَ لِلْمَزَارَاتِ شِرْكٌ أَكْبَرٌ. He says, so from this we understand that presenting oaths and slaughterings, like bringing animals and slaughter them at the graves and at these places that people that visit these graves, then this is major shirk. This is major shirk. Now, وَسَبَبُهُ مُخَالَفَةً. And the reason they fall into this major shirk is by what? Is by going against Hadi Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, going against the guidance of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam fi hala allati yajibu an takuna alayha al-qubur, by going against the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, by going against the guidance of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as relates to the condition that the graves have to be in. by going against the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ as relates to what? The manner the grave should be itself physically. من عدم البناء عليها, from not building upon the grave. وإقامة المساجد والمزارات, and not erecting masajid upon the graves or erecting places that are conducive to be visited upon the graves. نعم. لأنها لما بنيت عليها القباب, because once the domes have been built upon the graves, وأقيمت حولها المساجد والمزارات, and masajid have been built upon them or in close proximity to them, and places of visitation have been built in close proximity to them or upon them, ظن الجهال, then the ignorant people will think أن المدفونين, that those who are buried in this place, فيها, those who are buried inside this place, ينفعون أو يضرون, they will think that those individuals buried in this place, then they can benefit or they can harm. Right? Because if not, then why are you making all this special to do about where they buried at? Why is there a dome over their grave? Why is there a masjid over their grave? Why is there a place of visitation set up around where they're buried at? You're only going to do that if they got some kind of extra benefit. This is what the ignorant people, they think. They don't know. So they think, oh, people dead and buried there, they must be special. They probably can benefit us or even harm us even from beyond the grave. وَعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. وَأَنَّهُمْ يُغِيثُونَ مِنْ استغاث بهم, or من استغاث بهم, and that verily the ignorant people will think that those who are dead here, then they must help in times of peril those who ask for their help in times of peril. وَيَقُضُونَ الْحَوَائِجِ, and they carry out and they fulfill the needs, يعني من اتجه إليهم, and they fulfill the needs of those people who turn to them. فَقَدِمُوا لَهُمْ نُذُورٍ, so therefore they give unto them oaths. وَالْقَرَابِينَ, and they give to them slaughtering. They slaughter things in their name and at their graves. حَتَّى صَارَتْ أَوْثَانًا, until these graves have actually become idols. تُعْبَدْ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ, until they become idols and things that are worshipped other than Allah. وَقَدْ قَالَ النَّبِي صلى الله عليه وسلم, and the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he said, اللهم لا تجعل قبري وثنا يعبد. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he said, oh Allah, do not make my grave as an idol that is worshipped. Do not make my grave as a thing that is worshipped. وما دعا بهذا الدعاء إلا لأنه سيحصل شيء من ذلك. And the Prophet ﷺ, he wouldn't make this dua except that some of that will take place, meaning that people will take graves as objects of worship. This is why the Prophet ﷺ made a dua, because he knew that of the probability, or he knew that people would take graves as places of worship. People would take graves as places of worship. So he made dua unto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that his grave not be taken as something that is worship other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Na'am. وقد حصل عند القبور في كثير من بلاد الإسلام. He said, and this has happened in many of the lands of the Muslims at the graves. That many of the graves in the lands of the Muslims have been taken as places of worship. وَعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. وَأَمَّا قَبْرُ, with regards to the grave of the Prophet ﷺ himself, فَقَدْ حَمَاهُ اللَّهُ بِبَرَكَةِ الدُّعَاءِ, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he has saved the Prophet ﷺ from this and protected him from this due to the blessings of his supplication and his begging from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to not make his grave as a place that has been taken as an object of worship, or that which has been taken as that which is worship. Now the Shaykh says, وَإِن كَانَ قَدْ يَحْصُلُ فِي مَسْجِدِهِ شَيْءٌ مِّن مُخَالَفَاتٍ. He said, even if there happens inside of the Masjid of the Prophet ﷺ some things of opposition, من بعض الجهال, from some of the ignorant people, أو خرافيين, or some of the people given a superstition, because you got some people given a superstition where they try to do these things at the grave of the Prophet ﷺ. They try to make dua to him and face him and things like that. You understand? But even with this, the grave of the Prophet ﷺ has not been taken as a place of worship, and it has not been turned to that which is worship other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Shaykh explains why. He says, لَكِنَّهُمْ لَا يَقْدِرُونَ عَلَى الْوُصُولِ إِلَى قَبْرِ. He said, because these people, they can't reach his grave. They can't reach the grave of the Prophet ﷺ. You understand? They can't reach it. They can't get close to it. They can't get near it or even on top of it. They can't even get in that close of proximity to it. لأن قبره في بيته. Because the grave of the Prophet ﷺ is actually inside of his house. وَلَيْسَ فِي Masjid. It's not in actually his masjid. You understand? See, the grave of the Prophet ﷺ was in his masjid. And his masjid was adjacent to his house. And then when they expanded the masjid, they encompassed, or they built around the house, but the house is not, it's still, as it was, a structure, it's still there as it was, and it's not actually a part of the masjid. Why? The Shaykh, he says, وَهُوَ مَحُوطٌ بِالْجِدَارِ, because it is sectioned off, and it is, isolated by walls. It is completely closed off from all sides by walls. So you can't even reach it if you wanted to physically reach it. It's covered off by walls. It's not reachable. Now, كما قال العلامة ابن القيم, like Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, he said in his Nuniyya, he said, فَأَجَابَ رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ دُعَاءَهُ وَأَحَاطَهُ بِثَلَاثِ الْجِدَارِ أو الْجُدْرَانِ. He said that the Lord of all that exists, he answered his supplication, and he isolated, meaning what? His grave by 3 walls. He isolated his grave by 3 walls. So even the grave of the Prophet ﷺ itself, you can't even reach it. You can't even get on top of it or to it, because it's totally isolated by these walls and the like. So they can't even reach it if they wanted to. Nah, they can't even reach it if they wanted to. But even with that, that's from one standpoint. Another standpoint, walillahi alhamd, is that the kingdom of Saudi Arabia, may Allah Ta'ala protect it and safeguard it and bless it, they have employed guards at the grave of the Prophet ﷺ to make sure that ain't nobody doing no type of stuff like this, so they stop them. When the people come, even they come and try to take pictures, or they come and try to take videos, they stop them. They see the people facing the wrong direction, they stop them. They see the people trying to make dua to the Prophet ﷺ, they stop them. Even if they physically have to stop them and escort them out the Met, they do it. They stop them. They stop them from doing it. It's not just like 1 or 2 guards, but it's a number of guards that are in that whole area. As soon as you turn around that way, coming in that direction, they there watching, making sure people ain't doing nothing funny, because they know the ignorance of what exists. You know the ignorance of what exists. So they stop these ignorant people even from what they be trying to do. Towards the direction of the grave of the Prophet ﷺ. But as far as reaching the grave of the Prophet ﷺ, they couldn't reach it even if they wanted to reach it, because it's blocked off and it's isolated by these 3 walls. But and thus it has not been taken as that which is worship other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he had answered the dua of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam as related to this. Ala kulli hal, these affairs are very important. A person may say, well, it's just a tombstone, it's just a placard, it's just. But this is, we see the end result of the likes of these things and how it leads to shirk. You see the end result of these things and how it leads to shirk. Because you see, if there's any type of markings into this, then people will become known, okay, this is righteous man so-and-so here, sheikh so-and-so here, so on and so forth. Now, and then if it's common practice, just as an example to show you how things escalate, and if it's common practice that everyone has a placard, then they'll say, well, this person is special, so he can't get a placard, he has to get a tombstone. And if this person get a tombstone, right? And this other person who we deem is better than, he can't get a tombstone, he has to get an altar. And this person has an altar, but we deem this person to be better than what this person was, then he can't get an altar, he has to get an edifice, he has to get something, some kind of structure built over that. And then this one, we think he's more righteous, he need to get a whole building, this one need to get this one need to get, and it's so on and so forth. And now these become places where people start worshiping these individuals, so on and so forth. If you want to look to the end result of not following the sunnah of the Prophet, so I said my way to these things, and we look at what the Sufiya do with their awliya and how they pray to their awliya. Now, if we want to look at an example of not following the sunnah and how these things lead to shirk, then we look at what those nations who came before us do with their quote-unquote saints. Look at the Catholics and how they worship their saints and how they pray to their saints and how they have edifices built around their saints and churches built over their saints and so on and so forth. We find them praying to their saints. Praying to their saints. Now, because these things, these are the roads of shirk, and they always lead to shirk. They led to shirk with the Catholics, they led to shirk with everyone who has done this. Now, they led to shirk with everyone. The Jews and the Christians who have done this, it led them to shirk. But the Muslims who have done this, it led them to shirk, because the road to shirk is the road to shirk. Now, so the Prophet ﷺ, he shut down the road of shirk. So it's very important that we understand what is the sunnah as relates to how we deal with the graves, what is the proper adab at the grave sites, how the grave should physically be and how it shouldn't be, so on and so forth. These things are very important, because violation as relates to these things, and these are from things that will negate the Tawheed and the like, so they must be avoided at all costs. We have to follow the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then the Shaykh ta'ala goes on to the next chapter, and that chapter dealing في بيان الحكم التعظيم التماثيل, dealing with the glorification of statues and the like. نعم. But inshallah ta'ala we'll leave this to the next class. فنتوقف هنا فنكتفي بهذا القدر. وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وجزاكم الله خيرا.